welcome to NeuroDiverse Generation, the podcast where we flip the script on what it means to thrive through neurodiversity. I'm your host, Jenna Evelyn, and today we're diving headfirst into the quirks, creativity, and challenges of the neurodiverse experience. Whether you're here to laugh, learn, or find a little inspiration, you've found your people. Please note that this program may not be suitable for younger viewers due to explicit language and mature themes. Parental guidance is advised. This show is aired for educational purposes. We are not licensed diagnosticians or counselors. Let's get the conversation rolling. Nick Smit, the Rebel Ninja, is an award-winning presenter, corporate trainer, personal development and independence coach, and disability advocate. With his unique life experience and the wisdom he's gained as a person with a disability who has not let anything stop him, he activates, impacts, and moves all who enter his sphere of influence to aim for what they desire, and he empowers them to create their own reality. How's it, Nick?
Yeah.
Very, very well. Thank you. I would love to know, okay, just to create a little bit of context for our listeners, can you share the story about the car accident and how it shaped your journey with cerebral palsy and physical disability?
Okay, so I'm gonna share the brief story because the proper story is a bit too long. I was 6 months old at the time. My family was traveling down to Durban for a holiday. And on the way there, we were traveling in two different cars. My grandparents were in one car and my family was in the other car. And on the way there, on the highway, the car's tires got a flat. So I pulled over to the side of the road, put the hazard light on, all of that jazz. And then my dad started fixing the tire. My grandparents were in the car at the time. They just sat down because obviously, they were tired. My brother, who was 5 at the time, he got out the car and he was playing on the grass nearby. Now keep in mind, I was 6 months old. So I was in a car seat at the back of the car. And as my mom reached into the car to undo my belt buckle, that's when tragedy struck. And drunk drivers drove into our cars at approximately 120 kilometers an hour because they thought our cars were another lane. And yeah,
I don't even want to get into that.
There was no evidence of braking or anything like that. And unfortunately, my grandparents died on impact. My dad was trapped between the two cars and succumbed to his internal injuries 3 days later. As for my brother, he was on the side of the road, so he didn't receive any physical injuries, but obviously psychologically and emotionally, he was damaged for many years.
Completely traumatized,
my mom, who was halfway in the car, obviously sustained a broken hip and serious whiplash and some back injuries. And then as for me, because she had just undone my belt buckle, I went flying through the windscreen and landed some 15 meters away from the car. Basically, my head split in half. And so that's where I sustained serious head trauma. I then spent the next 3 months in hospital in ICU with my mom by my side the whole time, singing to me and trying to keep me being a mom. After that, I became an outpatient, went through serious and many head operations. I've got a VT shunt and a whole bunch of other stuff. They basically had to reconstruct my skull.
Although you wouldn't think so. I mean, like most of the time when people get surgery, if they have to have surgery done on their face or on their skull, on their head in some way, there's some like telltale sign. Man's is very good looking. He's doing well for himself.
Thank you very much. However, that is one of the things. So you raise a good point because I am going bald. Just luckily it's not receding from the front, but it's more of a solar. I call it the love machine solar panel.
We call it the kipper holder or the yarmulke holder.
Yes. So that's slowly getting bigger. However, one of my things is I have like, I think it's about 3 or 4 big scars on my head that are hidden by my hair. So, you know, some people have said to me, like, why don't you do what your older brother did and just shave it all off?
Yeah.
Because that's what my brother, who's 5 years older than me, he became bald a lot younger than me. So I still have a
Okay.
lot of hair compared to like how much he had. And that like it is not a fear. I mean, you know, it is what it is. But you know, I do have scars on my head, and I've even got a button because of my shunt. So there's literally a button in the head that you can press. And
Oh,
you
I
know,
love the irony. Your wife must
yeah,
absolutely love that in the bedroom because she can
you
just
know,
like thing,
go
turn you
ahead and
on,
push my
baby.
button. Yeah, push my buttons of the love machine. There we go.
Wow, that's an incredible trauma, I think, to experience at a time in your life when you can't possibly have any memory of it.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no way that you, having been there though, and being in touch with your mom and being so close with your mom, having her remember the trauma of that
Yeah.
incident and you experiencing the after effects, I cannot imagine how she did it for one.
Yes.
But the fact that you were able to recover the way you were is massive. It's a miracle, one might say.
Yeah. Again, I mean, I can't say that I did this all myself. You know, my mom basically quit her job um, after the accident, and she said, you know, family is it. And so she looked after my brother and myself. Obviously, with my disability, there were a lot of things. So I went to a special needs school up until the age of 9. I went to physio, OT, physio, you know, like everything. Um, and she took me there, and she, you know, helped me do the exercises and everything. Um, and that's also why we became so close, you know, because she was doing everything with me. Um,
She was such a
and
part of
you know,
that rehabilitation process. Well,
yes.
rehabilitation, I suppose, when one hasn't even started to walk, but
Yeah.
is it rehabilitation then technically, or are you just like learning? You know?
I would go with a bit of both. You know, it's like
Yeah.
learning rehab.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Oh, wow. Okay. So you are a dancer. You're a salsa dancer primarily. Am I correct?
Yes, correct.
Fabulous. Okay. So how did you discover dance as a form of therapy and a way to embrace your physical limitations? And what drew you to salsa in particular?
So it's funny you mentioned salsa because last night I went to I'm starting work again on Monday. So
Okay.
this is my last weekend of freedom.
Oh,
Um,
fabulous. I'm glad I
so,
caught
so,
you.
so to speak. And so I decided, screw it, I'm going dancing a lot. So I went dancing last night. My body's feeling a bit tired. However, straight after this, I'm going dancing again.
Yeah.
And then I'm having supper and then going to another dance party. So
It's like they say, it's kind of like a dancing hangover. You know, you can only get over the dancing hangover if you keep dancing.
yes. And then you feel like, you know, you can't walk or talk or do anything the next day, and that's okay. It's healthy though.
Yeah, that's mellow.
So so how did I get into it? I've always loved music. I've always loved rhythms and stuff.
Oh, and he's
And
got rhythm.
thank you.
If I do
So
say so myself.
with with my brother being 5 years older than me, he kind of set the foundations, right? As an older sibling normally does. So
Right.
when he went into matric, you know, at the end of matric, you have your matric dance. And so he went to dance lessons.
Oh,
And
wow.
so when it came to my matric, I was like, that's awesome. I want to do that too.
That's so
Now,
cool. Turns out it's not dead after all.
no, it isn't. And I had already been dancing, so I love clubbing and everything like that. And that's where, you know, obviously I knew that I love dancing. So I was like, cool, you know, it's done. I'm going to dance lessons. So I did dance lessons for about I think in total, obviously after matric dance, I did ballroom for 2 years. Um, and I did enjoy it. However, I felt it was a bit too structured for me. Also, some of the moves, because it's quite precise, were hard for me as a person with a disability. I didn't explain that at the beginning of this, so let me quickly backtrack. You mentioned that I have a disability, so I've got cerebral palsy with hemiplegia. Basically, for those listening to this that don't have a clue what that is, don't panic. I'm here for you. As a teacher, I break things down all the time. So cerebral, meaning brain, and palsy, meaning paralyzed. So the right-hand side of my brain was damaged in a car accident, which has affected the left-hand side of my body. So that's where the hemiplegia comes in. Hemi being half and plegia being paralyzed. So because half of my brain was damaged, half of my body is affected. So I walk with a gangster limp because I'm cool like that. And then I've got a bit of a rogue. I've got a rogue arm that doesn't always work so well. So on the right-hand side, my fingers and everything are working perfectly, but on my left-hand side, not so much. So I've got what you call gross motor movements. So I can do big movements, but no fine motor movements. So no finger movements, wrist movements, down the whole side of my body. So that's why I can dance and walk and things like that, because I've got that gross motor movement.
And that coordination.
Yeah. And so that's where my dancing started. And then with the ballroom, I felt, as I was saying, I felt it was too structured, and I battled with some of the movements. And then I think my mom said to me, like, there's this salsa party there, or salsa lessons or whatever. So I went to one, and that's it. I was hooked. And it's been 19 years now.
Wow.
I've been dancing for 19 years in total. 17 of them have been salsa. So I met salsa, and we've been going steady ever since. I call myself a salsa disciple because I just want to spread the moves. And ballroom is very structured. So, you've got the frame. So arms up, head tilted to the side. She fits perfectly in your frame, and you move together as one. And it looks amazing. But to me, you don't have that connection, right? So this is ballroom with the frame, and then salsa is more like, hello, and you're like,
oh, it's got that charm.
Yeah. So it's that I'm here, there's space between us, we can be close, but there's a freedom, right? There's a it's not that full on structure, and that's what I love about it. Is you can bring your own personality, you can bring your own flair, you can mess up, and it's okay. You can, some people have step every counts and others don't. It's like kind of what works for you, as long as you can keep in time with the music. And salsa is a dance that started in the streets, right? So it's meant to be a fun and thing. So that's why I fell in love with it, because it's so free and because you can connect with the person. And like, when I see her smiling, I know I'm doing it right. If I see she's frowning, I'm like, okay, let's break it down a little bit more or whatever. And so it's really a good connection with the person that you're dancing with. And obviously with that, there's what you call an SBK party. So S being salsa, B being bachata, and K being kizomba. So what normally happens is you go to salsa lessons and you'll learn all of them. You go to bachata lessons, you'll learn all of them. Doesn't matter, because you're going to be exposed to all of those at the party. So even though I danced salsa, I dance salsa, merengue, bachata, kizomba, semba, like that's
okay. Sorry, Nick. Dang. Look, I did ballroom for a short period when I was in early high school. And I have to say that what you've just described about salsa is exactly what I enjoyed about it as well. Can't tell you that I remember much of it for the life of me, but I'm sure you can give me a hand with that at the next party.
Yes, absolutely.
Can you explain to me how you use dance, especially salsa, to teach your growth mindset? Because this is what you specialize in, right?
Yeah.
How does kinetic association help to rewire the brain to overcome those challenges?
So I think, let me take a step back before I explain that part of it. For me, obviously, being a person with a disability, right? And an overt one, right? A physical one that people can see. You and I were discussing this before the podcast, is like, for a person with hidden disabilities, it comes with separate challenges. When do I disclose? How do I disclose? Because it's not obvious. For me, it's the opposite. It's like they can see my disability from a mile away.
Yeah.
How do I bring that across? How do I introduce myself? How do I introduce my disability? Because they know it, right? So
Yes.
I always try and say that I introduce my personality before my disability.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I want you to get to know who I am before you judge me, right?
Absolutely.
However, with that, I also say that I'm lucky in that my disability is a physical one that you can see, because I call it a built-in bullshit filter.
Yes.
If you are a very pompous person who is very judgmental based on looks, you and I are not going to get along, but that's going to be okay, because you're going to see my disability and go like, oh, I don't want to, chat to you. I'm like, cool, that's great. Don't
Yeah.
chat to me. Don't waste my time.
Ultimately, you don't want shallow people like that in your circle.
Exactly. So in that regard, having a disability is actually quite a good thing. So when it comes to dance, I find that yes, people see me with my disability, but once I'm on the dance floor, it kind of and they see that I can dance, it
Melts
kind of
away.
disappears, right? Because I've learned the skills and sneaky ways to get around only having one hand, or only having the ability to not fast-paced step, but step enough. So like I'll lead with one hand, do a comb, grab the other hand, and before she knows it, I'm moving her into another step. Now, a normal guy would do it with two hands.
Oh
I
no,
do
but
that.
Nick is slicker than that.
I always I always say I dance with one because two is just overkill. You don't need two
Oh yeah, no. That's for the
so
amateurs.
yeah, exactly. So that's where the like dancing and confidence and everything comes in, is that yes, I have a disability, but it kind of disappears while I'm dancing. And then I found that I think it was my like, third year of like salsa, I ended up dancing on the dance floor, and that's a whole other story. I'm not going to go into depth with that, but I was dancing on the dance floor, and like I don't know if you've ever had this, but a feeling like washed over me. Okay, and
Ah.
it was like freedom slash confidence, and it was like I'm just feeling this music, and I don't give a shit what moves. Normally as a guy, you're always thinking what comes next, what's next, what's next. And I'm not saying I don't do that. I still do that. But it's like I was just moving, right? And it's like, oh, this is cool, and this is move, and I feel like doing that.
How
So I'm just gonna,
liberating.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's where like I think my love for dance actually like got elevated, right? Because if like
Yes.
it's like being on a drug, like on an absolute high, but having
Drugs.
drunk, like this is pure unadulterated like adrenaline, euphoria, and it came from within. It was I can't explain it. It was amazing. And I
Wow.
was thinking like, if that's how I felt, let me do that again, and let me see what I can, like. So from there it became this like, I'm going to ask that chick to dance, despite my disability, like, let's do it. And so I used to ask anybody and everybody. For the first 6 years of my dance career, I was single, and I would go to a party and dance with as many people as I could, and get numbers if I wanted to get numbers, not get numbers if I, whatever. I didn't care,
He
because
was
it was
making moves.
yeah, I was. And like unapologetically, because I was confident, right? It was like, it was my,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm.
And then fast forward into my 30s, and because I've always been a bit ahead of the curve, I was going not through a midlife crisis, but a midlife review or a midlife reflection. And I was like, okay, have I done, or am I on the path to fulfilling my purpose? And what is my purpose? And like, what I've gone through so much stuff in my life. My car accident is only one of many other challenges that I've faced in my life. And why have I gone through all of this? And like, am I literally living my life to its full capacity? And the answer was no. I'm doing kind of what I want, kind of what I should do, but not to the nth degree. So that's when
of
I started.
fulfillment.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Mm.
when I started. I'd always been public speaking since the age of 9. But now in my 30s, I was like, screw this, I need to take it seriously. So I joined the Professional Speakers Association of Southern Africa, also known as PSASA.
Shout out.
And then COVID actually happened. But in
Oh.
hindsight, that was actually a good thing because it gave me the time to like focus on it, right? And learn and everything. So it was really, really cool. And during that time, I took what's called a launch class. And in that launch class, they help you identify your niche and how you speak and what messages and stuff like that. So I then came up with Dance Your Destiny, where dance stands for be driven, authentic, nimble, courageous, and empowered.
Wow.
And in that workshop, and it's a workshop series of obviously 5 parts, I delve into each of those topics, giving people my like experience of that letter. So like, what does it mean for me to be driven, and examples in my life. And then I give them the theory of what it actually means. Like, what does driven actually mean for a person? And like, how do you get driven? How do you tap into that, etc.? And then after that, we do invest work where I share insightful questions, reflective questions for those attending, again, focusing on that letter. So like, what drives you? What influences your drive? What internal motivation is there? What external motivators are there?
Wow.
And so this all goes. And then at the end of every session, I teach a dance move. I teach a salsa move that aligns with that letter. So for example, driven, I teach the step that goes forward and back, because in life, when you're a driven person, you're going to go forward and you're going to get knocked back. But the important thing is to go forward again. And so I've aligned dance steps in salsa with each of those letters. So that
I love that, particularly for neurodivergence, though. That's so effective with kinetic association when it comes to actually retaining so much of the value that you bring in those workshops.
Thank you. And then obviously, by the end of the series, you've learned all of those letters and the theory behind it. You've self-reflected on each of those. You've hopefully built up some kind of a plan to move you forward. And then I've taught you salsa. So I say that I teach you to not only physically, mentally, and psychologically dance to your destiny, but also now to put it all together. And so at the end of that workshop, what I normally do, if it's like a one-on-one, I'll take you to a salsa party and we'll dance salsa at that party. Or if it's a group, what I do is I host a salsa party and then we all celebrate that we've come to dance our destiny.
You could honestly, your slogan for Dance Our Destiny could be like something along the lines of, teaching people how to get back, how to fall back in love with life. You're in the business of teaching people how to reconnect with their own humanity, which is just appallingly rare in this day and age. But thank God we've got someone like you to give us a hand with it, right?
Thank you.
How has your experience with physical disability reshaped your understanding of the mind-body connection? In what ways do the mind and body work together in your approach to overcome obstacles?
That's a very multi-layered question.
Like an onion, let's peel it back.
So I think about disability first in general, right? And I think people that face challenges like a disability or a rare disease or anything like that tend to be more problem-solving orientated.
Adaptable, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. More mature at a younger age because they've had to overcome more challenges.
And that creates depth for sure.
Yeah, and maybe more empathetic. Obviously, I'm speaking from my own perspective, and not everyone listening might agree with me, but
I agree wholeheartedly.
and so, as a person with a disability myself, I think that it teaches you things earlier than most people would need to learn, right? Like you're meeting challenges on a daily basis that would be normally easy for an average person to do. Now all of a sudden is a difficult thing for you to do. And you've got to sit there and go like, well, fuck, I want to do this thing. And you either don't or you do. Or you either ask for someone's help or you give up or whatever. And so those are things that you always have to grapple with as a person with a disability. And so for me, as a person with a physical disability, I've always had to navigate like that delicate balance. Again, you and I spoke about this before this podcast, is like, there are certain circumstances where I'll be like, screw it, I'm going to learn how to do this myself. And it might take me a lot longer to learn. And I might have to do it in a different way that takes me longer, but I'm going to get it done. However, later on in life, I've realized it's okay to ask for help. And it's okay to go like, I'm not good at this. It's going to take me a lot longer. So let me rather ask someone to do it. So I'm kind of, you could say, when I do it myself, I'm empowering myself. And when I ask someone else to do it for me, I'm disempowering myself. That is true to a degree. However, it's like, when is it important, right? So like, if I'm going to a dinner and I'm there with some friends and I'm engaged in the conversation, I'm going to order something. And if it needs to be cut up, I'm now going to ask the waiter, I'm going to say, please, can you ask the kitchen to cut up my meat for me because I only have one hand and I can't cut it. And then they do it for me. Then while I'm at the dinner, I don't need to worry about spending half an hour cutting up my food and focusing on the food, focus on the conversation. Whereas take me like in my 20s and earlier, and screw it, I sat there cutting it myself. Because I was stubborn then and I was like, I need to do this.
I can because I will, because I can,
And so I think that's also important, is like, yes, you need to empower yourself. Yes, you need to do it yourself. But in what situations, what circumstances can you give it to someone else? Or can you like accept help from other people?
I think if you view it as like delegation, that could work.
Yes. So tapping into what you're saying is, I really, really believe that, right? In that, like, what are you good at? What are your strengths? And then what are your weaknesses? Now, you as a person have a choice. You've always got choice. Do I develop my strengths further? Do I develop my weaknesses further? Do I work on them? That's completely your choice. And I'm not saying don't work on your weaknesses. If you want to improve something, you've got to work at it, right? But at the same time, like, I know I'm shit at cutting things with one hand, so I'm not going to work on it. Like, I'm delegating the shit out of that, Okay, you do it because I can't, and I accept that. And by doing that, I'm able to focus more on my strengths. I'm obviously using cutting meat as one example of many, right? So like, I've even taken that into my business. Can I delegate something that I'm not 100% skilled in, that's going to take me twice as long as someone else who is skilled at it? If I can delegate, do it, because everyone's going to benefit.
For sure, 100%. But I love the realistic view that you take on this. It's quite refreshing, in the sense that there is a psychological component to physical disability that a lot of people completely underestimate. And it's not necessarily in the stereotypical way of like, oh, they must have been bullied and they must have had such a rough time. And no, you don't look at them, don't stare for too long, because and it creates that air of discomfort, that neurodivergence experience when that mask slips off as well. It's your story inspires me more than you know. You have absolutely no idea. I think particularly in the sense that it's about taking back control. Taking back control of your own life, taking control of, like you say, your destiny, taking control of your future and empowering yourself psychologically to make the physical happen. That is amazing. Okay.
So
So,
I see you looking down at your questions. Before you move on to the next question, I'd love to tap into what you've just spoken about, because it's something that
yes.
I bring it into everything I speak about, right? Is
Mm.
locus of control.
Yes.
Locus of control is, for me, like, that's it, right? I always experience life in power. So I was mentioning this earlier. You know, by giving something to someone else, you're either empowering them, disempowering yourself, or whatever. So there's always if you and I are talking right now, right? It's a shift of power. You are listening to me and I'm speaking. So right now I have the power. Then I'm going to keep quiet and listen to you. Then you have the power. If I going back to what I was saying about cutting, if I sit and cut myself, I'm in control, I'm in power. If I give it to someone else to cut, I'm giving my power to them. So it's always like a shift of power. Now, take locus of control into account. And locus of control, for those of you who don't know, is the idea of there's internal locus of control where you are in control. And then there's external locus of control, which is the influence of others on you. So the importance of knowing that is, if you don't control what you can control, you're literally going to, by the law of like physics, you're giving that control to other people.
If you're not the main player in your own game, you end up being a pawn in someone else's.
Exactly. And that's 100% true. So the decisions you make are yours, and whatever decision you make is going to affect you, and it is going to affect others. But there are going to be decisions made.
Yes.
Whether you let them, other people decide for you, or you decide for yourself, right?
Indecision is decision.
Correct. The words escape me now. Ignorance. You know, they always say ignorance is bliss. But again, ignorance, behind ignorance is like a lack of control. You're like, I don't know, so I'm going to let someone else, you know, decide it for me. So I've always got that in my mind, is like, am I deciding on this? I need to work for this. I need to do this. I'm in control. My wife says to me, I'm always working, and I've always been like that my whole life. But that's because I have such a high internal locus of control that I basically, if I don't control it, or if I don't create my own destiny, it's not going to be created the way I want. To the point that I recently I've got 3 tattoos. I recently turned 40, and for my 40th, I got my 3rd tattoo.
Awesome. It's awesome.
The tattoo I'm showing you now on the screen is the Viking symbol for creating your own reality. Now, what I've done with that is I've created a background of my enlarged version of my thumbprint. I'm basically saying that within me, I am creating from day one. It's who I am. I am creating my own destiny. And I've put it on my hand that works. I've put it on my right hand because if I put my hand
that cooperates.
Yes, I'm creating reality. At the same time, I'm kind of reminding myself, shit, Nick, you need to do work. Because if I sit here, leave my hand here, and let other people do stuff, I'm literally throwing my reality, my destiny,
your power,
my life away. However, if I put my hand to this and I go, okay, I'm going to type that message. I'm going to work. I'm going to connect with that person. I'm putting this to you know, its true worth. I'm creating my own destiny.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful. And I think that consciousness and awareness of your internal locus of control is incredibly powerful in the context that you use it, because of the fact I am someone, for example, who has a very internal locus of control. But what that's meant for me as a neurodivergent is that I've ended up being overcritical of myself and overanalyzing my own choices, my own decisions, particularly the way I'm perceived by other people. And having this awareness that you have about, okay, this is what I'm capable of, this is what I'm not, this is what I can control, and this is what I can't. That is a missing link, I think, in the neurodiverse field, because so much feels chaotic and out of our control, to the degree where we actually grounding techniques almost feel silly with this, with the chaos that you feel internally. There's a lot to be said about that, for sure. What have been some of your biggest challenges, both mentally and physically, in pursuing your passion for dance, and how do you overcome them?
Physically, some of the biggest challenges, I think that's the easiest one, is remember my left side doesn't work properly, right? So I have gross motor, but
Yes.
not fine motor. So I can't do any of the fancy footwork, and I can't lead with two hands. And that is a big challenge for me because there's so many cool things that you can do, you know, with two hands and with 2 feet, and you're like, okay, I can do that, I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, that is one of the challenges. Remember, I've been dancing salsa for 17 years. So obviously, I got to a point where I was doing classes and I got to the advanced level. I got to the advanced class where we were literally doing like washing machine moves, where we were dropping the woman in between our legs and we were
You.
doing this. And she
Ooh.
was throwing her in the air and like doing
Wow.
twists stuff. And I could do some of that. I could. However,
Mm.
there was a lot of it that I couldn't do.
Mm.
Now, if you put yourself in that situation, like I'm now, I think about 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit more into my dancing career. I've literally gone to dance classes religiously, whether I'm sick, tired, doesn't matter, for like years.
Wow.
Um, and now I'm faced with the decision. Do I continue in the advanced class
Mm.
and like accept that there are like almost insurmountable challenges here? And like there are
Mm.
literally moves that I cannot do. Like no matter how much I want to do them, it's
Yeah.
physically impossible for me to do them. Like the washing
Mm.
machine, you need two hands
Yeah.
because as one hand pulls her up, the other hand pulls her down, and you like basically alternate, right? Now, there's no way. Remember, I said at the beginning, I will figure out a way to get around it. Unfortunately, there is no way to get around that.
That must
So
have been incredibly frustrating in
it
realizing
was.
that growing up.
It was. And so like in my dancing career, I did the advanced class for maybe like half a year. And then I was like, thank you so much. I'm not going to be doing the advanced class anymore. And I've now, you know, I'm doing the intermediate. Well, I don't do classes anymore, but from there,
Mm.
I went back to the intermediate class and I was happy there. Yes, I knew the moves and whatever, but I was enjoying myself and I wasn't like overly stressed and stuff like that. And when I'm
Yeah.
going to these dance parties, again, I see people doing this fancy stuff, but what I think a lot of people experience, or a lot of ladies experience when they dance with me, is I'm real, right?
Oh
So
yeah. Oh
I will
yeah.
smile,
Yeah.
I will smile, I will, you know, have conversations with, I'll twist them and whatever. And I'm not going to do those crazy fancy moves, but the moves that I do, I bring my own personality across.
Oh yeah.
And that's because I've danced the intermediate stuff for so long that it's like second nature to me. I don't need to think about it. I can focus on,
Yeah.
you know, shaking my top half instead of focusing on my legs or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like that was the biggest challenge for me in dancing, is like right there deciding I'm not going to carry on with the advanced class, and it was because of
Mm.
physical disability. So I think that answers both aspects of your question.
Yes, definitely. It really, really does, because sure, I think knowing your own potential, knowing that you're a good dancer, that you are skilled, that you are talented, that this is something that you're good at, and you can feel the passion just flowing through your veins
Yeah,
while you're up there. I can only imagine that the only thing that I have to contribute to that is that ultimately we are not in the business of perfection, and anyone who
yeah,
tries to sell you that's a liar.
correct.
We're in the business of making people feel something that matters
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
yeah.
And I would say that you do that expertly, masterfully, sir. So,
Thank you. So
of
when I
course.
dance when I dance with a girl, or a lady, I always, as I said earlier, like I watch and like, I'm not saying stare at them or whatever, but
No,
as
but
they're dancing with,
sensitivity.
as they're dancing with me, I'm like checking, are they smiling? Are they happy? Are they okay? And when I teach dance, I explain to the gentleman, whoever the lead is, I say, like, you are the frame and the girl is the picture. And your job as the frame is to make the picture look good. So
Oh, you're dropping bars here, Nick.
if I'm leading and she's having a good time and she's looking great, then I'm doing a good job. It doesn't really matter how fancy my moves are, but can I make her feel good? Can I make her enjoy the dance? If yes, then
I love that. I love that so much. You know, I used to go to this holiday camp, and it was both as a camper and then later on as a counselor there, called Happy Acres in Magaliesburg. And one of the things that they teach everyone, right? It's square dancing, that old school type of square dancing with the old tracks that they've somehow convert. I don't even know how they did it. But I cannot tell you how much fun I have in square dancing. And it's a similar concept, actually. The male is supposed to lead the woman, the man is supposed to lead. And it irritates the living daylights out of me when I'm square dancing with some limp-armed O. It was like, you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not a promenade. I should not be putting your arm around my shoulders, friend. You know? What is next for you in terms of teaching and advocacy? How do you plan to continue spreading the message of resilience and growth through dance? Because I know you've got a stint coming up in the States soon, don't you?
Yes, yes.
Well, is there a link that I can share for people to follow that?
Not yet. The
Okay.
emphasis on yet. So watch the space. We're going to have another session.
Hopefully by the time we post this podcast, we'll have a link to post. So check in the description.
Yeah. So for me, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast episode, you know, I came up with Dance Your Destiny years ago. And I've been working on it and perfecting it and doing it here and doing it overseas via Zoom. I've done it in about three or four different countries over Zoom. And a speaker, I'm going to call them like a speaker bureau or speaker company, found me. And they approached me and they said, you know, you're the type of person we need in our team. We normally have a cohort of 20 speakers. And right now, you, with your disability and your experience and the different
value you have to offer.
Yeah, the different perspective you have to bring as a person with a disability, we need you on our team. And so I was like a little bit apprehensive. It costs a lot of money for me. However, I can make a lot of money, so I balance it out. And so I've done quite a lot of talks in the US over Zoom. I've got 2 groups that I contribute with basically every week. So once a week, I have one or the other group that I do group coaching with, and I also do individual coaching with 2, soon to be 3 people with disabilities in America. So that's like my movement is already happening there. I'm just not doing it physically, right? But now with this group or this speaking company, what they do is they actually take their brand and their speakers and they go and they pitch them to all the colleges and universities in each of the states. So I will go, for example, let's just say California. I will go to California with that group. They will pitch as a company, but then as they pitch as a company, they will also pitch with you
individuals.
being there, individuals. And then it's really hectic. They have like a show, what they call a showcase, where they are like, if you think of Gallagher Estates with like the whole like speaker expo, like an expo, right? So they've got a whole bunch of speakers and a whole bunch of topics. And basically all these colleges have student representatives and lecturers that walk around and they decide who they want. And then from there you go and talk and do workshops and whatever at those different universities and colleges.
That is
And
such an amazing opportunity, and it's in the fields and in the spaces where change needs to take place. I'm not going to start ranting about varsity right now, but thank you on behalf of all the students. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be offering Dance to Destiny in America for the whole of 2025 into 2026. Wow. And I'm hoping to, like, depending on when you go over is the states that you're going to go into, but obviously I'm hoping that I can tap into as many different states as I can.
For sure.
And also spend enough time in each state to interact with a few different colleges and universities, so that I really get my message across. Because what I want to do is I want to use the Dance Your Destiny workshop series as my intro to me as a person, so that they get to know me. And then what I want to do is I want to offer my coaching to those with disabilities in those colleges, and go, you need a person you are a person with a disability, you want to create your own destiny, you want to create your own independence, like, let's work together. And like, my big goal is to obviously go and do all this Dance Your Destiny work in America, but my final goal, or my long-term goal, is to basically launch myself as a personal development and independence coach in America.
Let's make it happen. We're gonna make it happen, Nick. They picked the right man for the job, for sure.
Thank you.
And I'm so thrilled about this conversation we're having. I'm absolutely reeling. It means so much to me that for those of you who don't know, Nick is very kind for taking the time out to come and do this podcast with me today, because this is not the first but the second time that I've been incredibly late for one of our meetings, and I've made him wait for more than half an hour. Time blindness, right?
All good.
Thank you for your understanding. Thank you so much for your insights and your wisdom. We're going to post Nick's social links and his website, all of his details in the description below. Please give him a follow. Check out what's going on with his America trip, because I'm sure by then we'll know what's going on. And for the rest of you, please, please, please do tune in for another episode next week. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And please, I'd love to hear a little bit more from you. Follow our Spectrum support link to write in a letter, and we will respond and post it on Sundays with our response.
Jenna, from my side, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. I truly did enjoy the conversation, and I love the work that you're doing and the space that you're creating. I think it's really awesome.
Thank you so much for empowering other people to overcome obstacles that seem impossible. But it's about focus at the end of the day. It's about that perspective. It's about mindset, and it's about what you're looking to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.